Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, today we're going deep inside the human body to take a look at this silent, high-stakes battle that really determines your health. So what really happens when you get sick? I mean, it's way more than just a cough or a fever, right? To really get it, we've got to zoom way in and look at this microscopic battlefield where this constant struggle is always taking place.
What we're looking at is basically a war. It's fought between these microscopic invaders and your body's own elite defense force. In this explainer, we're going to break down the two sides of that conflict: microbiology, which is all about the invaders, and immunology, the science of how our bodies fight back. All right, let's get into it.
Okay, first things first. Let's meet the invaders. We call them pathogens, and these are the agents that can actually cause disease. They basically fall into four main categories, and you've got to understand each one has a completely different playbook for how they attack. So you've got bacteria. These are the prolific colonizers. They can pretty much live and multiply on their own. Then you have viruses, the ultimate cellular hijackers. Think of them as just code. They're not even really alive until they get inside our cells. We've also got fungi, who are kind of the opportunists, they wait for our defenses to be down. And finally, parasites, the really complex intruders with these intricate life cycles that can be incredibly tough to break.
Okay, let's zoom in on the two big ones, because this difference is absolutely critical. Bacteria are complete living cells. They can replicate all by themselves. But viruses? Nah. They're basically just a bit of genetic code, DNA or RNA, wrapped in a protein coat. They can't do anything on their own. They have to invade one of our cells and turn it into a little virus-making factory. And that fundamental difference is exactly why we treat them so differently. See, an antibiotic can target a bacterium's unique machinery, but an antiviral, it has the much harder job of trying to stop that virus without destroying our own hijacked cell.
So how do these little things actually make us sick? It's not just that they're hanging around. It's all about the weapons they carry. In medicine, we call these virulence factors. Think of them as the microbe's toolkit. Things like toxins that can damage our tissues, or maybe a special slimy coating that acts like camouflage to help them hide from our immune system. And, it's really important to remember that not all these threats are created equal. Fungi, for example, are masters of the opportunistic infection. They literally just wait for our defenses to be down, and then they strike. And with parasites, it's a whole other ballgame. You have to understand their complex life cycles, how they're transmitted through food or water or insect bites. That's absolutely key to even diagnosing the diseases they cause.
All right, so we've met the invaders, this whole rogues gallery of microscopic threats. But here's the good news. Our bodies are anything but defenseless. We have this incredibly sophisticated, multi-layered defense force. So let's flip the script and see how our amazing immune system is built to fight back.
Basically, the immune system has two main branches. Think of it like this. First, you've got innate immunity. These are your first responders, fast and general purpose. Then you've got adaptive immunity. These are the elite specialists, the ones you call in for very specific threats.
Let's talk about that first line, the innate response. Think of it like the local police and fire department. They show up fast. We're talking minutes to hours. They don't know the exact details of who the bad guy is, but they recognize general signs of trouble. Like a broken window on a microbe surface. And when they see it, they sound the alarm, which triggers inflammation. So the key takeaway? It's super fast, but it's not specific. Now this is where things get really interesting. The adaptive system is slower to get going, but it learns to identify a specific enemy. Its key players are T cells and B cells, and they develop a totally custom-made response. And here's the most important part. They create a memory. That memory is the whole reason you usually only get something like chickenpox once, and it's the fundamental principle behind how every single vaccine works.
Okay, let's break down the T-cell team. Think of them as the special forces on the ground. First, you have the CD4+ helper T cells. The CD4 is just a protein marker on their surface, like a badge. These guys are the commanders. They don't do the killing themselves. They organize and coordinate the entire attack. Then you've got the CD8+ cytotoxic T cells, again with their own unique badge. These are the assassins. Their job is to hunt down and eliminate our own body cells that have been compromised by an invader, like a virus. So while the T cells are out on the field, the B cells are back at the factory, cranking out these incredible weapons called antibodies. And we've got a whole arsenal of them, each with a specific mission. You've got IgM, which is the first one to show up to a new fight.
Then there's IgG, that's for long-term protection and memory. IgA stands guard at all the entry points, like your gut and lungs. And then you have IgE, which is famous for fighting parasites, but is also the main driver behind allergic reactions.
Okay, so it's a powerful system, right? But the most crucial point here is that a healthy immune system is all about balance. So what happens when this incredible defense force goes haywire? What if it's overactive, or confused, or just too weak?
Well, one thing that can happen is what we call hypersensitivity. This is basically when your defense force completely overreacts to something that's actually harmless, like pollen or dust or cat dander. The result of that massive overreaction is what we all experience as an allergen.
And doctors actually classify these overreactions into 4 different types. Type 1 is your classic immediate allergy, hay fever, peanut allergy. But the others get more complex. Type 2 is when your antibodies mistakenly start attacking your own cells. Type 3 happens when these little clumps of invader and antibody gunk up the system. And type 4 is that delayed reaction, like the rash you get from poison ivy, which is driven by T cells.
And sometimes the system's targeting gets, well, horribly confused. It completely loses the ability to tell self from invader. And when that happens, it starts attacking the body's own healthy tissues. This is autoimmunity. It is the literal definition of friendly fire. And it leads to devastating diseases like rheumatoid arthritis or lupus.
And then, of course, you've got the exact opposite problem. If the immune system is too weak or it's broken, we call that immunodeficiency. You can be born with it, or it can be acquired later in life, most famously from a virus like HIV. And what happens then? Well, the gates are left wide open, making the body incredibly vulnerable to all those opportunistic infections we talked about earlier.
All right, so we've looked at the attackers, we've looked at the defenders, we've seen what happens when things go wrong. Now we can finally put it all together and understand the big picture, what a disease really is.
If you remember one thing from this whole explainer, let it be this. Microbiology is what the pathogen is doing. Immunology is how the body responds. A disease isn't just one or the other, it's the interaction between the two.
Think about it, the fever, the swelling, the aches and pains, so many of the symptoms we actually feel when we're sick are really just the signs of our own immune system going to war. Understanding this dynamic, this conflict, is the absolute core of modern medicine. It's how we develop everything from antibiotics and vaccines all the way to these cutting-edge cancer immunotherapies that literally weaponize our own defenses. And make no mistake, this invisible battle is never over. It's constantly evolving. Pathogens are always figuring out new ways to get around our defenses, which leads to huge challenges like antibiotic-resistant superbugs. But at the same time, our understanding of immunology is exploding, leading to these revolutionary new treatments. The battle rages on. And now that you know the players, are we ready for what's next?